Hi guys, it's Tara and welcome back to Crafting with Curly Cues. Today I wanted to share with you my entry for the MFT Sketch Challenge number 300. I'm going to be doing an off-the-edge shaker card featuring the adorable magical dragon stamp set. So there is the sketch challenge. I wanted to show you where my inspiration is coming from so that you have an idea of where I'm starting and kind of where I'm trying to get to at the end here. So obviously I'm going to be using the magical dragon stamp set, so adorable. And then I'm going to be using a couple of different dies. So I already had that little heat emboss circle left over from a prior project. And I found that one of these stitched circle frame dies from MFT, my favorite things, fit perfectly around that circle. So I'm going to go ahead and use that die as well as a couple of the stitched rectangle dies from Lawn Fawn. So I'm using some grout gray cardstock from My Favorite Things. It's one of my favorite light neutrals, and I am just going to run that through my Big Shot. You can see that I taped those two rectangle frames together, and that way I'm going to get a little frame for the outside of my card. And then I just went ahead and popped that circle die right in the middle because I'm not going to use that middle panel, so I thought I'll make the most out of my cardstock and be able to do one swipe through my Big Shot. So you can see now kind of where I'm going with this. So I've got the frame here. So I kind of am going in reverse. So rather than pop a panel up and leave a border around the outside, I'm going to put the border around the outside and pop that up. So just kind of, again, I'm kind of letting you know my thought process as I go because I really wanted to create this shaker kind of hanging off the side, and I knew I needed a frame in order to close off that open side to do that. So that's where I'm going with this. My card base is going to be some sea glass cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. I thought that was a really nice pale neutral that coordinated really well with that Audrey blue cardstock that's in the middle of that circle. And then to coordinate even further with the Audrey blue, I'm going to use this adorable banner die that comes in the My Favorite Things Blueprints 29 Dynamics set. That set has so many useful dies, and this is one of several dies that I bust out on a regular basis to be able to just create certain elements on cards. So I needed a piece of acetate to go behind my window. It happens to be heat resistant, but I'm not going to heat emboss on it, so you totally don't need a heat resistant acetate unless you are going to be doing that heat embossing. You could use extra packaging, whatever you've got laying around that could be the acetate window for your shaker. And now I am going to move on to some of my coloring. So I have stamped that super sweet dragon. I fell head over heels for this stamp set when it first came out, you guys. It was ridiculous, and I tried to resist buying it, but I mean, I've said this before, I don't know why I try to resist. My Favorite Things is one of my all-time favorite stamp companies, and I just need every single thing that they put out. So I'm super excited to be getting to use this little dragon. I'm doing it for, if you guys watched my last video for the greeting farm, I am creating some cards for a friend that she wanted for her kiddos. And so the last card that I did was for her little girl, and this card is for her little boy, and she said that he likes dragons. So I was like, what a perfect opportunity to bust out that magical dragon set. So I stamped him with some VersaFine black onyx pigment ink on some Bristol smooth white cardstock, and that is because I am using my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. As you all know, I'm obsessed. They are one of my favorites, and I feel like they've been getting neglected lately. I've been doing a lot of Copic coloring, so I am was super stoked to bust these bad boys back out. So I'm going to be listing the colors that I'm using on the screen as I'm using them so that you can see what colors I'm using if you're interested. As always, all the supplies that I use are listed in the description box below, and they'll be over at my blog, so if you want to check that out, you can definitely do that. But you saw that I started with a little bit of the darker shade of green, and then I went back over it with my lighter shade. I didn't like how well it was blending out, and you can see that here on his little face. I think I let it dry too long. You kind of need to use these when they're wet, since they're water-based kind of watercolor markers. But that's okay, because if you just go in and do more layers, it just blends right back out. So I just kind of went over it until I liked the shadowing that I was getting, and I liked the green shades. To be honest, I thought this was going to be a more kind of lime green dragon, and he got a little bit darker than I expected, but I think he turned out adorable, so I don't even care. And then I used some peach pink there to go over his little cheeks and the inside of his little ears. And then I'll just go over one more time with my olive green and make sure that all the dark shadows are as dark as I want them to be. And then I will move on to his little dragon belly. I am going to call this dragon Pete, because Pete's Dragon is out in the movie theater again in live action. I haven't seen it yet, but I loved the old one when I was a kid with the animated dragon that was, I mean, I just thought it was so stinking cool. So, of course, my kid, when I tell her, like, because she wants to see the new one, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it was like awesome when I was a kid. She's like, they had this movie when you were a kid? I'm like, yeah, and it was cool because the dragon was like a cartoon and nothing else was a cartoon. And she's just looking at me like, huh? Just like why didn't they just CGI the dragon in? It was just, it's kind of funny. Sometimes that generational gap just makes me feel old, but anywho, this is Pete. That's where my motivation, not motivation, my inspiration for the colors on this little dragon came from, because I feel like this is what Pete was, or Elliot, his name was Elliot. Pete was a little boy, but Elliot was the dragon. That's the color scheme Elliot kind of had. He had some purple, but I didn't put any purple on there because I don't know if my friend's little boy likes purple, so I didn't want to go with that. But anyway, Elliot Pete Dragon here has been fussy cut out, and I'm going to line the edges with my black soot distress marker because that just makes it look like you cut it out perfectly. It lines all the white on the paper so you can't see any of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and decorate him so that while I'm putting my card together, all this stuff can be drying. So I put a little black glaze pen on his eyes to make him nice and shiny. And I'm putting a little bit of white dots on his cheeks because I love doing that with my critters. And then I'm going to add some sparkle over his wings and his little toenails. And I did off camera go back and add the sparkle to his belly and the bottoms of his feet and his spinies on his back. I just felt like he needed to be sparklier, so I couldn't resist. So now I'm going to start building this shaker. And I left everything in here for you guys so you can see all my bumbling and fumbling. This is one of those where in my head it made perfect sense, but actually executing it was just, I just never tried this before, and I knew how it was going to work, but just the steps of getting it put together were just kind of, I had to pause on occasion and like rethink what I was doing. So anyway, so I'm starting by putting the background on the card where I'm going to want it. And I made some pencil marks where I'm going to have this butt up against the frame. So the frame of the card and the frame of the shaker window are all going to be the same height on the card. So they're all going to have the foam tape behind them. And then the dragon will be popped up, and then the background will be kind of sunken into the back. So I hope that makes sense. And you'll see as it comes together kind of what it's doing. So I'm putting my acetate on the back of my shaker window, and I kind of left a little bit of a lip on the acetate outside of the frame that I'm going to have to trim later because it kind of gets in my way. So here is my giant amazing roll of foam tape, and I've got some non-stick scissors because that's the best way to cut this stuff up, and I'm just going to create a bunch of little super thin strips because as you can see that frame is pretty darn thin. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I thought I was going to try to attach this first, and then I was like, that's not going to work. So I gave up and I started putting the foam tape on the back. I was like, you know what? I know how to do that. And so I'm just going to stick with something I know how to do, let my brain relax, and then I'll deal with the rest of it later. So I'm going to start with one layer just all around the frame. And then because I want my shakers to have plenty of room to wiggle around, I'm going to go ahead and add a second layer to all of this, which was, it was just getting a little, this is a flimsy little thin frame, but once you kind of secure all these layers and stuff, it went on really nicely. So here's a stellar trick that's going to change your life with shaker windows. If you peel the backing off of your foam tape, it will bend around different shaped shaker windows. So how amazing is that? So instead of cutting 800 little pieces and trying to make sure that they all touch so your shakers don't fall out, just peel the back off and bend it around. It's amazing. It's fabulous. I got that tip from Christina Werner, and she got it from one of her subscribers. So whoever you are, thank you. So I wanted to share with you guys, this is a whole bunch of sequins from Kat Scrappiness. So Kat was generous enough to send me a bunch of these sequins a while back, and I haven't had a chance to make a shaker card with them. So I'm super excited to be using them today, and she has got some of the most amazing, gorgeous sequin mixes, and there's all different shapes and colors, and it's just so fun. I'm going to link to her website in the description box below, so make sure you check that out if you're into shaker cards, or if you're just into really, really super pretty amazing things. You definitely want to check her out. She's got die cuts and just all kinds of good stuff over there. So I'm going to use these little circle sequin confettis, and I put this frame on first, and then I just butted that little circle right up against the frame, and it's like perfect. I was so stoked about how well it worked. And now I don't know if I was using glitter, like micro beads, if all my foam tape is really butting up underneath there perfectly, but for the sequins, they're big enough that they're not going to come out. So it worked out super great, and I feel like it looks pretty seamless. Like it looks like that circle's hanging off the edge of the card, which is totally what I was going for. So I was pretty excited about how that all worked. And this little confetti in there is so cool because it's like these big open circles, and then the little insides are in there too. It's just super fun. And then I loved how little Elliot Pete Dragon here ended up being like the exact same curve of my circle because he's kind of leaning a little bit to the side, and it was like the perfect curve for this circle. It just is one of those cards that once it got put together, I was like, oh my gosh, love it. So I was so excited about it. So as you could see, behind the sentiment banner and the dragon, I popped double layer of foam tape also because they need to be up at the same level as everything else because again, the background is sunk into the back. So I got everything on there and I thought it looked a little bit sad and empty in that background. So I went ahead and put a little bit of multimedia matte. I just squirted it on a scrap piece of paper. And then I'm using my tweezers to pick up some of these same little confetti pieces that are inside my shaker window, and I'm just dabbing a little tiny bit of that multimedia matte on the back and then placing them on my card. I'm using the multimedia matte because A, it's a super strong adhesive, so I'm not worried about these bad boys falling off when I mail them to my friend, and B, it's going to dry matte, so obviously it's going to squish out of those like little hollow circles, but when it dries, because it's matte, it's not going to be shiny and draw attention, so that is why I'm using that. So that card is all done. So it really wasn't that difficult once I figured out kind of the mechanics of putting it together. So I think that next time I try this, it'll go a lot faster. So thank you guys so much for stopping by today. Here are a couple more videos where I participated in some My Favorite Things challenges. And you can also subscribe here by clicking on the screen or visit my blog. All the supplies are going to be listed below and over at my blog, and you can join me on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. Thanks, guys. Bye.